Hey, story lovers! For more inspiring, shocking, and emotional tales, make sure to subscribe to Dream Nest Stories. It was a quiet evening at one of New York City's most renowned restaurants, La Belle Cuisine. Known for its exclusivity and culinary excellence, the restaurant catered only to the city's elite. The staff, impeccably dressed in their crisp uniforms, prepared for another night of high preferable clientele. Chef Marcus, the head chef and the restaurant's pride, was already commanding his kitchen with precision, his voice sharp and authoritative. As the staff was settling into the rhythm of the evening service, the maitre d' approached Chef Marcus with a peculiar look. "Chef," he said, lowering his voice, "we have a very special guest tonight." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Special guest? Who?" The maitre d' hesitated. "Barron Trump. He's dining with a few friends." The mention of the Trump name sent murmurs rippling through the kitchen. Some staff exchanged glances, others stiffened. But Chef Marcus's reaction was more pronounced. His face darkened and his movements became rigid. "I'm not cooking for him," he stated flatly. The room fell silent. One of the sous chefs broke the tension. "Chef, you're serious? He's just a kid." The sous chef, Marcus, slammed a pan onto the counter, making everyone flinch. "I don't care who he is or how old he is. I have my principles, and I'm not compromising them for anyone," he barked. The kitchen staff, unsure of how to proceed, looked to the maitre d' for guidance. He sighed and left the kitchen to inform the front of house. Meanwhile, Barron Trump and his friends had arrived and were seated in the private dining area. Barron, dressed casually but impeccably, had a polite and composed demeanor. He greeted the staff warmly, unaware of the turmoil brewing in the kitchen. The waiter assigned to their table approached nervously. "Good evening, Mr. Trump. May I take your order?" "Coffee?" And Barron smiled. "Of course. I've heard amazing things about your chef's signature dishes. I'll try whatever he recommends." Barron waited. The waiter hesitated, unsure of how to explain the situation. "I'll check with the kitchen," he said, before retreating quickly. Back in the kitchen, the tension was palpable. The maitre d' returned, his face pale. "Chef, the boy's polite and respectful. He hasn't done anything wrong. You're really going to refuse to cook for him?" Yes, such a smile. The warmth-infested body of the old man, looking the right choice for the words he would say, summarizing his claim. "Ma foi, te. Very good." Marcus crossed his arms. "You heard me. If you want to serve him, find someone else to do it, but it won't be me." "This," said Marcus, "is what I do for a living. I'm not a Marine. My family is dead, and death don't care. My life is mine." Just as the staff was grappling with this dilemma, the kitchen doors swung open, and a tall, familiar figure stepped in. The entire room froze as Donald Trump himself walked in, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. "I hear there's a problem with my son's meal," he said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. The air in the kitchen became heavy with tension as Donald Trump's presence loomed over the bustling staff. His tailored suit and unmistakable aura commanded attention. Chef Marcus, despite his resolve, felt a flicker of unease. Still, he stood tall, crossing his arms. "Mr. Trump," Marcus began, his voice steady. "This isn't personal. I don't agree with your family's politics, and I don't believe I should have to cook for your son. Cooking, opened quotes, is for the children. Trump tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. The kitchen staff exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what was about to unfold. My son, Trump said slowly, his voice measured, is a 15-year-old boy who just wanted to enjoy a meal with his friends. I don't see what politics has to do with him ordering dinner. Marcus's lips tightened. It's about principle. It's not just about him. It's about the name he carries, the influence, and frankly, the princess. Enough, Trump interrupted, raising a hand. You've made your stance clear, Chef, but let me make something clear as well. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, though it still carried an undeniable weight. Barron is not me. He's a kid, a good one. If you choose to judge him for my actions, that says more about your principles than mine. The room was silent, the staff holding their breath. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the doors swung open again. This time, it was Barron Trump himself who entered, his friends lingering nervously near the doorway. Dad, please, Barron said, his tone calm but firm. I didn't ask for this. Let's just go somewhere else. Trump turned to his son, his stern expression softening. Barron, this isn't about you. This is about respect, something you should expect wherever you go. And then burst into tears. Reaching into his coat pocket, he produced a notebook and began writing Trump. But Barron shook his head. Respect goes both ways, he said, glancing at Marcus. If Chef Marcus doesn't want to cook for me, that's his choice. I don't want anyone forced to do something they don't believe in because of me. The room was stunned by Barron's maturity. Marcus, too, was taken aback. For a moment he saw not the son of a polarizing figure, but a young man who carried himself with dignity far beyond his years. Simon said, Did anyone disagree with you? Barron, Trump started, but his son interrupted him. Seriously, Dad, it's fine. We'll just leave. He turned to the kitchen staff. Thank you for your time. Sorry for the trouble. With that, Barron turned and walked toward the exit, his friends following. Trump lingered for a moment, his piercing gaze locking with Marcus's. Marcus groaned, his eyes downcast. At length, speaking, Trump came out of his muffles. Voices. You've lost more than just a customer tonight, Trump said quietly, before turning and leaving. The kitchen remained silent long after the Trumps had gone. Marcus felt a mix of triumph and unease. He had stood by his principles, but had he crossed a line? His staff looked to him, their expressions a mix of discomfort and disapproval. Later that evening, as the kitchen began cleaning up, one of the younger sous chefs approached Marcus. Chef, she said hesitantly, I think you made a mistake. She smiled, and her hair smoothed down her back. She looked blush pink, and her eyes moved slowly. Marcus looked at her, his exhaustion showing. I stood by my beliefs. That's not a mistake. But what about Barron? She pressed. He didn't deserve that. He was kind, and he handled the situation with more grace than most adults would. Doesn't that count for something? Stunk, he thought. Marcus didn't respond, but her words lingered in his mind. Meanwhile, Barron and his friends found themselves at a small diner a few blocks away. It wasn't glamorous, but the warm lighting and the smell of fresh burgers made it inviting. The owner, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile, greeted them warmly. "We don't get many VIPs in here," she joked as she handed them menus. "Very, very loud." Barron smiled back. "We're just regular people tonight." As the group settled in, the diner staff treated them with kindness. Not because of Barron's name, but because of who he was. A polite, respectful young man. For the first time that evening, Barron felt at ease. Was his remarkable gold ring had protected him. Back at La Belle Cuisine, Marcus couldn't sleep. The image of Barron's calm demeanor and his mature words haunted him. What had he really achieved by refusing to cook for the boy? Was it truly about principles, or had it been a personal bias he had allowed to cloud his judgment? The next day, Chef Marcus arrived at La Belle Cuisine feeling uneasy. News of the incident with Barron Trump had gone viral, sparking debate online. While some supported Marcus for taking a stand, others criticized him for targeting a young man who had done nothing wrong. The restaurant was quieter than usual, and the staff exchanged anxious glances. Mid-afternoon, the tension heightened when Barron Trump walked into the restaurant alone. Dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, he calmly took a seat, drawing whispers from the few diners present. Marcus watched from the kitchen, unsure of what to do. Finally, he decided to face him and walked over to the table. At this point, Marcus walked over to the table. It was miles too cold. This was a summer day. Alone. People loved to talk. He was offering cannabis tea. "Chef Marcus," Barron said politely, "thank you for coming out. I thought we should talk." The man smiled. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Barron, I didn't expect to see you again. About last night." "I understand why you were upset," Barron interrupted gently. "But I am not my father, and I don't expect special treatment. I came back because I wanted to show you that." Unfinished praise. Then the face turned pale and reddens, and her mouth went open. The sincerity in Barron's voice surprised Marcus. "I judged you unfairly," he admitted. "I let my frustration at the world affect how I treated you, and I'm sorry." Barron smiled. "Thank you for saying that. I just wanted a chance to show who I really am." Moved by the conversation, Marcus offered to prepare Barron a meal, a gesture of reconciliation. Barron accepted, and Marcus poured his heart into crafting the dish. When Barron thanked him, it felt like a weight had been lifted, and sighed. "Ah," he said, looking at her. "I have a soul." "Thanks," said Nina. "I've often wondered if you had one." The story of their encounter spread quickly, transforming from a moment of tension to one of understanding and growth. Marcus learned that anger and prejudice could be overcome with compassion, and Barron reaffirmed his commitment to forging his own identity. In the end, their shared humanity turned an unlikely situation into a powerful reminder of kindness and second chances.